I'm Jacob, 36, and this past New Year's Eve was the night I finally realized my family didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as staff. You know that gut punch moment when you reread a text 3 times just to make sure you're not overreacting? That was me, staring at my mom's message in the family group chat. This new year, go to your sisters. There's no space for you or your kids. I scrolled up, half expecting it to be a joke. But then my sister, ever the saint, chimed in. But you can still come early and cook like always. And the cherry on top, Dad's text, don't ruin the mood. Just bring the gifts. I just stared at the screen, that buzzing, low-grade rage crawling up my neck. I wanted to respond, I really did. Maybe say something witty or just honest. But instead, I muted the chat. I sat there for a while, phone face down on the table, while my 8-year-old son, Ben, played with his toy cars on the carpet, making engine noises. My daughter, Ella, was on the couch, coloring quietly. It hit me then, my parents didn't even want them there. Their own grandkids. Because, apparently, there wasn't space. Now, for context, my parents' house isn't small. It's a 4-bedroom place with a finished basement, 2 guest rooms, and a dining area that could fit a small wedding. But every year, my sister, Claire, gets the master guest room for her husband and their twins, while I usually get the basement sofa or an air mattress if I'm lucky. That was fine when it was just me. But I've been divorced for 3 years now, and ever since then, I guess I'm the inconvenience. See, Claire was always the golden child, the high achiever, straight-A student, corporate ladder climber, all that. She married Greg, a guy who looks like the human embodiment of a LinkedIn profile picture. Perfect teeth, expensive watch, zero self-awareness. They live about 40 minutes away from my parents, and somehow every family event revolves around them. My parents practically orbit her life. Me? I'm the freelance graphic designer who never quite found stability. That's what Mom said once at dinner, while I was sitting right there. She said it gently, like she was talking about a stray dog she sometimes feeds. I just smiled and took another bite of turkey. But I remember. I always remember. So when I read that message, I knew what it meant. I wasn't being uninvited because of space. I was being uninvited because they'd already decided where I fit in the family hierarchy. I was the helper, the one who still comes early and cooks like always. The next few days, I went through the motions, took the kids ice skating, worked on a few design projects, tried to pretend it didn't bother me. But every time I opened Instagram, I'd see Claire posting pictures of her perfect family, captioned, "Can't wait to ring in 2025 with my favorite people." My mom would comment with heart emojis. Dad would comment, "The best." I didn't even bother liking the posts anymore. By December 30th, Mom texted me privately, "Jacob, can you bring your famous roast potatoes? Everyone loved them last year." I just replied, "Sure." She double-tapped it with a heart. That was our entire conversation. So, New Year's Eve. I woke up that morning with this weird calmness. I packed up the kids, loaded the gifts in the trunk, and drove the hour to Claire's place. Her house looked like something out of a catalog. White lights, garland, wreaths, the whole thing. I rang the bell, and Claire opened the door in this sparkling silver dress like she was about to host a red carpet. She gave me a half hug, the kind that's mostly shoulder. "Oh, you made it. Can you take the ham into the kitchen? Mom's already started the appetizers." I carried the food in, kids trailing behind me. Mom barely looked up from the stove when we entered. "Hi, honey," she said absently, like she was greeting the mailman. "Put the gifts under the tree." "Oh, and could you start peeling the potatoes? I'm a bit behind schedule." That was it. No Merry Christmas. No how was the drive. Just an order. I looked over at Dad, who was already sitting in front of the TV with Greg, both holding drinks and laughing about something I couldn't hear. Ella tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Can I help, Dad?" I nodded. She stood on a stool next to me while I started peeling. As I worked, I caught snippets of conversation from the living room. Greg was talking about their new SUV, Claire was talking about her promotion, and Mom was bragging about how proud she was of them both. My name didn't come up once. Not once. By the time dinner was almost ready, I'd been on my feet for 3 hours. My back ached, my hands smelled like garlic, and Ella had fallen asleep on the couch. Ben was trying to play with his cousins, but they were too busy with their tablets. At one point, Claire poked her head into the kitchen and said, "Make sure the gravy isn't too thick this time, okay? Last year it was kind of She trailed off and gave me that fake smile people use when they want to insult you but still sound polite. I just nodded. Got it. When dinner was finally served, everyone gathered at the table, everyone except me. Mom gestured toward the kitchen counter where she'd laid out the kids' table, which looked more like an afterthought. You can sit there with the little ones, Jacob. It's easier for you to help them eat. Easier for me to help them eat. My own kids. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as a sigh. I looked at the big table. 8 chairs, all filled. Mom, Dad, Claire, Greg, the twins, and even Greg's parents, who somehow scored an invite. But not me. I was at the counter, between spilled juice boxes and plastic plates. The night went on. Toasts were made, pictures were taken, and I was barely in any of them. When I went to grab a drink, Dad frowned and said, "Careful with that, son. Greg's got an expensive carpet." Like I was a toddler about to spill something. Around 10 p.m., Claire brought out a big, expensive-looking cake. Everyone gathered around while she announced that she was pregnant with baby number 3. The room exploded with cheers. Mom started crying. Dad hugged Greg, and I stood there holding a plate of leftovers I was trying to wrap for my kids. "You're not going to say anything, Jake?" Claire asked with a smirk. "Congrats," I said. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. She smiled like she'd just won something. After that, the night blurred together. I cleaned the dishes while everyone else laughed in the living room. Mom came in once and said, "Jacob, don't forget to take the trash out before you go." Like I worked there. I nodded again, because what else could I do? Argue? 'Cause a scene in front of my kids? I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. But I'll be honest, something in me broke that night. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like the sound of a plate cracking under too much pressure. 3 hours into dinner, just as everyone was clinking glasses and shouting, "Happy New Year," the doorbell rang. Everyone looked around, confused. Claire frowned. "Who's that at this hour?" Mom said, "Probably the neighbors." But I knew exactly who it was. And when I opened that door, the room behind me went completely silent. Standing in the doorway, I froze. The cold air from outside swept in, biting at my face, and for a moment, I thought I might be hallucinating. But there he was, Uncle Rob. My dad's younger brother, the family's black sheep. Except unlike me, he'd made peace with it. He was the kind of guy who stopped attending family events years ago, mostly because Dad and Mom thought he was unrefined. He'd been cut out of every photo, every conversation, every memory. Until now. He stood there in his worn leather jacket, holding a large brown envelope under his arm, his expression somewhere between calm and disappointed. "Hey, Jake," he said. "Sorry to drop by uninvited." Behind me, I heard my mom's voice, sharp and disbelieving. "Robert, what on earth are you doing here?" He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "Just thought I'd stop by," he said, his tone casual but heavy. "Heard the whole family was getting together. Figured it'd be nice to see everyone before the new year." My dad looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. "We're in the middle of dinner," he muttered, his smile painfully forced. Rob glanced past him. "Oh, I can see that. Looks like a full house." His eyes landed on me, then on the sink piled with dishes, then on the counter where my kids sat with their plates. His expression darkened slightly. "Didn't realize you were catering, Jake," he said quietly. That stung more than I expected. Claire appeared behind my dad, clutching her wine glass. "Uncle Rob," she said with that same performative politeness she used with strangers, "I didn't think you were still in touch with us." He smirked. "Neither did I. But then, someone left a voicemail for me last week. About some changes to Dad's will. So I figured, hey, maybe I should show my face again." The room froze. I could hear the clock ticking. My mom's expression twitched for half a second before she composed herself. "This isn't the time," she said. "We're celebrating." Rob shrugged. "Sure. Just thought it was interesting." The voicemail said something about removing me as a beneficiary. Not that I care much about money, but the part that caught my attention was whose name was added instead. Now everyone was looking at him, but I noticed Mom's hand trembling slightly as she adjusted her wine glass. "Claire," Rob said, turning toward her. "Congrats on the promotion, by the way. And the new house. Must be nice to get some help from the family trust, huh?" Her smile faltered. "I don't know what you're implying." "Oh, I think you do," he said evenly. "Because that trust was supposed to be for both your kids." His gaze shifted to me. "And only one of you got a call from the lawyer." I didn't say a word. My throat felt tight. I didn't even know there was a trust. Dad stood up, face red. That's enough, Rob. You come into my daughter's home, uninvited, and start spewing nonsense. Nonsense, Rob interrupted, laughing under his breath. So it's nonsense that you and your wife moved the funds last month? That the account under both your kids' names is now listed solely under Claire's? Mom's voice rose. That's private family business. Exactly, he said, raising an eyebrow. Family. That includes Jacob, doesn't it? Everyone turned to me then. I could feel every eye in that room pressing down on me like heat. My mom's face softened just enough to deliver her trademark guilt line. Jacob, please don't make this into something it's not. You know your sister has more responsibilities. She's got kids, a mortgage. So do I said quietly. She blinked, like she hadn't expected me to speak. I've got kids too. A mortgage. Bills. The only difference is I don't get bailed out by family money I didn't know existed. Claire set down her glass. Oh, come on, Jake. You wouldn't even know what to do with it. You can barely manage your freelance stuff. Mom and Dad just thought it'd be smarter if the funds went to someone stable. Someone stable. The words hit harder than I expected. Uncle Rob whistled softly. Wow. They really don't even hide it anymore, do they? Rob, please, Mom hissed. He ignored her. You know, Jake, your dad used to talk about fairness all the time when we were kids. Said he wanted both of us to have equal chances. Guess that stopped applying when it came to his own kids. My dad's voice boomed. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do, Rob shot back. You think the world's forgotten who bailed you out of that business debt 15 years ago? Who signed the papers so you wouldn't lose the house? You're still living off the money I helped you secure. But sure, let's pretend you're the noble patriarch. The tension was unbearable. My mom looked ready to explode. Claire had gone pale, and Greg, bless his clueless soul, was pretending to check his phone. Finally, Dad said, Rob, leave. Now. But Rob didn't move. He looked at me again, that same steady look he'd given me years ago when I was a kid. You ever wonder why they always need you to come early and cook? He asked softly. Why they never make space for you and your kids? I didn't answer, but I felt something inside me shift. It's because they don't see you as family anymore, he continued. They see you as convenient. That line landed like a punch. The silence afterward felt deafening. My mom finally broke it with her sharp, clipped tone. You've made your point, Robert. Jacob, don't listen to this. You know we love you. Love me. I interrupted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. You didn't even want me here tonight. You literally told me to go somewhere else because there wasn't space. You made me cook, sit at the counter, and act like I should be grateful just to exist in the same room. Jacob, Dad warned, his voice low. Watch your tone. No, I said. For once, you watch yours. The room went still again. Even the twins had stopped whispering. I could feel years of swallowed resentment clawing its way up my throat. You've spent my whole life pretending I'm some kind of failure because I didn't turn out like Claire. But you never once stopped to see how hard I've been trying. You talk about family, but you treat me like hired help. Mom's face tightened, and I could tell she was about to launch into another speech about respecting my elders. But Rob cut in. Let him talk. And for once, they did. I've put up with it all because I thought that's just what family does. I showed up. I helped. I smiled through it. But tonight, I paused, my voice catching. Tonight, I realized I'm not part of this family. I'm part of the work staff you don't pay. No one said a word. Even Claire looked like she didn't know where to look. Then Rob handed me the envelope he'd been holding. You might want to read this later, he said quietly. It's about the trust. My dad lunged up from his chair. Rob, don't you? But Rob was already walking toward the door. You've done enough, Henry. I stood there with the envelope in my hand, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My mom tried to reach for it, but I stepped back. What's in here? I asked Rob. He looked me straight in the eye. Proof. Then he opened the door and walked out into the cold. I didn't move for a long time. Nobody did. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the heater and Claire's twins giggling softly, not understanding what had just happened. Finally, my mom said, Jacob, don't make this worse. You'll regret it if you. But I wasn't listening anymore. I slowly opened the envelope. And the moment I saw what was inside, my hands started to shake. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about everything they'd been hiding, everything they'd stolen. And that was the moment, right there in my sister's perfect living room, when I stopped being their obedient son and started planning my revenge. My fingers trembled slightly as I unfolded the papers inside the envelope. There were about a dozen sheets, bank statements, signatures, notarized transfers, all pointing to one truth. Everything my parents had ever told me about family fairness was a lie. The trust fund had originally been created by my grandfather, a man I barely remembered except for his old wristwatch that Dad used to wear proudly. He'd set aside money for his grandchildren's future. There it was, right on the document, in his precise, cursive handwriting, to be divided equally between my grandchildren, Jacob and Claire. But according to the newer documents, the trust had been restructured 5 years ago. My name was crossed out, literally crossed out in ink. A new line beneath it said, Successor Beneficiary, Claire Matthews. The date of the amendment? 2 months after my divorce. For a moment, the room blurred. I could hear the muffled chatter of the others behind me, Mom whispering something to Dad, Claire trying to shush the kids, but I couldn't focus. It was like every breath in the room had been sucked out. Jacob, please, Mom said, her voice suddenly softer, almost maternal. You don't understand. This was your father's decision. We were just thinking of what's best for everyone. I looked up slowly. Everyone. She took a hesitant step forward. Claire has more responsibilities. You know that. She has a family, a home, and I have a family, I said louder this time. 2 kids, remember? You told me to leave them out of tonight's dinner because there wasn't enough space, and now you're talking about responsibilities? Claire folded her arms. You're twisting everything, Jake. This isn't about favoritism. It's about logic. You're not exactly the most financially responsible person. Something in her tone, so casual, so dismissive, snapped whatever was left of my patience. You mean because I didn't marry a walking spreadsheet? Jake, Mom snapped, scandalized. That's no way to talk in front of the children. Oh, now we care about setting examples? I said, because it seems like you've been teaching one lesson pretty clearly for years, that I'll always be second place. Dad finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it had that firm, controlled authority that used to make me shrink as a kid. Jacob, you are overreacting. This was never meant as an insult. Claire is just better suited to manage things right now. You've always been creative. You live month to month. What if something happened to you? You'd spend it all. My jaw tightened. So instead, you just decided I don't deserve anything at all. He didn't answer. He just looked away, and that silence said everything. For years, I told myself I was fine with being the underdog, the quiet one, the helper, the peacekeeper. But in that moment, standing there with my kids' names not even mentioned in what was supposed to be their inheritance, I realized something deeper. They didn't just underestimate me. They'd erased me. Uncle Rob had left a few minutes ago, but his words echoed in my head. They see you as convenient. I put the papers down on the counter carefully. My hands felt cold, but my mind was oddly clear. Tell me something, I said, looking at Dad. When Grandpa died, you told me there wasn't much left. You said most of his estate went to taxes and medical bills. He hesitated. That's true. I pointed to the documents. Then what's this? He didn't respond. Or this transfer to the Matthews family holdings account. That doesn't sound like taxes, Dad. His face darkened. You watch your tone, son. Mom stepped between us quickly. Jacob, this isn't the time for this. It's New Year's Eve. Please, let's not. I laughed. It came out sharp and humorless. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I ruining the mood? Should I just bring the gifts and keep my mouth shut, like the good little helper you raised me to be? She flinched at that. Claire muttered, You're being dramatic. I turned to her, calm now. No. Dramatic is pretending to have a perfect life on Instagram while lying to your brother's face for 5 years. Her cheeks flushed. You don't understand how these things work. Maybe not, I said, but I understand betrayal. For a moment, nobody spoke. Even Greg finally put his phone down, sensing the shift in the air. Then Ben's small voice broke the silence. Dad, are we going home? I looked down at him, and for a second, all the noise in my head quieted. His eyes were wide and a little scared. He didn't understand what was happening, but he could feel it. The tension, the anger, the coldness that had always filled this house disguised as tradition. I knelt beside him. Yeah, buddy, I said softly. We're going home soon. When I stood up, Mom tried to put her hand on my shoulder. Jacob, please don't do anything rash. We can talk about this later, after the holidays. I stepped back. You had years to talk about it. You made your choices. Don't you dare walk out of here and make a scene, Dad warned. This is still family business. I smiled faintly, though it didn't reach my eyes. Don't worry. I won't make a scene. I gathered the papers, folded them neatly, and slipped them back into the envelope. Then I picked up my coat, called Ella over, and helped Ben put his shoes on. Claire scoffed as I passed. Honestly, Jake, if you're going to sulk every time life isn't fair. I stopped in the doorway and looked at her. No, Claire. I'm not sulking. I'm remembering. Remembering what? She said, half laughing. Everything, I said. Her smirk faded a little as I walked out the door. The cold night air hit me like a shock, but it felt cleaner than anything inside that house. I strapped the kids into the car, got in the driver's seat, and sat there for a while with my hands gripping the steering wheel. The papers on the passenger seat felt heavy, like they carried more than just money. They carried years of quiet humiliation, of unspoken boundaries, of being useful but never valued. In the rearview mirror, I could still see the glow from Claire's house. Warm, golden, perfect from the outside. The kind of picture people post with captions like "family is everything." But I knew better now. As I started the car, Ben asked sleepily, "Dad, are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" I stared out at the road ahead. "No, buddy," I said quietly. "They're just not who I thought they were." He yawned. "Are we going to see Uncle Rob?" That caught me off guard. "Why?" "He looked nice," Ben said simply. "He said hi to me." I smiled a little. "Yeah," I murmured. "He is nice." As we drove away, the sound of fireworks began to echo in the distance. The new year was starting, and for once, I didn't feel trapped by it. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wouldn't let it go. Not this time. That night, after I tucked the kids in and sat alone at the kitchen table, I opened the envelope again and studied the signatures. My dad's, my mom's, the lawyer's. Then, something caught my eye. A small note scribbled in the margin of one of the pages, in handwriting that wasn't theirs. It said, "Call me before you confront them. Don't let them twist it first." And beneath that was a phone number. Uncle Rob's. I stared at it for a long time, then picked up my phone. Because maybe, just maybe, this time I wasn't alone. And as it turned out, Uncle Rob had a plan. One that would make every lie they'd ever told finally come crashing down. But that came later. When I called Uncle Rob the next morning, he picked up after one ring, like he'd been expecting it. His voice was calm, steady, exactly what I needed to hear after the storm of the night before. "I figured you'd call," he said. "Did you read everything?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "And I don't even know where to start. I feel like my entire childhood just got rewritten." "That's because it did," he said. "Your dad's been moving money around for years. He's been keeping the family trust under Claire's name so the taxes would look cleaner, and telling everyone it's what your grandfather wanted. But I knew your granddad. He would have never cut you out." My stomach turned. "So what do we do?" Rob sighed. "We make it right. But we do it smart." The plan was simple, but precise. Rob still had old copies of the trust paperwork, plus Grandpa's handwritten notes that confirmed it was meant to be split equally. The lawyer who'd handled the original trust had retired, but Rob tracked him down. He was in his late 70s now, living quietly in a small town 2 hours away. When I met him the next day, he remembered everything. "I warned your parents back then," the lawyer said. "Your father wanted control of both halves. I told him he couldn't change your grandfather's wishes without your consent. He told me you'd agreed. Signed for it." My chest went cold. "I never signed anything." He nodded grimly. "Then that's forgery." He pulled out an old filing box, rifled through some folders, and handed me a photocopy. And there it was, my signature. It looked close to mine, but not quite. Too smooth, too perfect. And next to it, my father's actual signature, bold and clean. I didn't say a word. Just took the paper and thanked him. Rob called me that night. "We can take this to court," he said. "But if you want something quicker and louder, we can do that too. Up to you." I thought about it for a while. And then I thought about Ben and Ella, how I wanted them to grow up knowing what integrity looks like. I didn't want a quiet settlement. I wanted the truth out there, no matter how ugly it got. So I made a few calls of my own. The next Sunday, Claire was hosting another family dinner. She texted me, "If you're not still mad, come by." Like nothing had happened. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Rob, and we showed up together, uninvited, just like he had that night. Except this time, I wasn't shaking. When the door opened, Claire looked genuinely surprised. "Wow, you actually came." "Yeah," I said calmly. We brought dessert. We walked in. Mom and Dad were already seated at the table, mid-laughter. The moment they saw Rob, it stopped. Mom stood up immediately. What are you doing here? Rob set his briefcase on the table. Finishing what we started. Dad's jaw tightened. Jacob, I thought we agreed. We didn't agree to anything, I said, pulling out the papers. But I thought you might want to see this. I spread the documents out on the dining table. The old trust, Grandpa's handwritten note, the copy of the forged signature, and the notarized amendment transferring everything to Claire. My dad's face went pale. Mom stammered. Jacob, this is out of context. You're blowing things out of proportion. Really? I said. Because the lawyer we just met said otherwise. And he's willing to testify. He even gave me the original copy of the signature page, with his notes proving it was altered after Grandpa's death. Claire's fork clattered against her plate. You went to him? After all these years? Rob smiled faintly. Some of us still believe in doing things right. My dad slammed his hand on the table. You don't understand the pressure I was under. The taxes, the lawyers, Then you should have said that. I interrupted. You should have told me the truth instead of cutting me and my kids out completely. Mom's lip trembled. We were trying to protect you. By lying? I asked. By erasing my name? She didn't answer. Rob leaned forward, his voice even but firm. You've got two options. You come clean and fix it properly, or Jacob files a claim for forgery and misappropriation. And if that happens, every financial record from the last 10 years becomes public, including the ones tied to Greg's business investments. That got their attention. Greg nearly dropped his wine glass. What are you talking about? Rob pulled out one last document. A transfer showing Greg's company received a private family loan from the same trust account. Oh, just this, he said casually. Looks like your father-in-law funded your firm without telling anyone. That's called misuse of estate funds. Greg's face went gray. You said that was. Claire, you told me it was approved. She looked cornered, eyes darting between him and our parents. I thought it was. For a full minute, no one spoke. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Then Dad sank into his chair, deflated. What do you want? He muttered. I took a deep breath. I want it put back. All of it. Every cent that was supposed to be shared, restored equally as Grandpa intended. Half for me, half for Claire. And I want my kids' names on it. Permanently. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Jacob, please. No, I said quietly. You don't get to please your way out of this one. Rob reached into his briefcase and slid over two pre-drafted amendment forms. I've already talked to the lawyer. Sign these, and it's fixed. Simple. For a moment, I thought Dad might refuse. But then he saw the look in my eyes, and maybe for the first time in his life, he realized I wasn't backing down. Slowly, he picked up the pen and signed. Mom followed, silently crying. Claire hesitated, but Greg whispered something to her, and she signed too. It was over in minutes. When it was done, I took the signed forms, folded them, and slipped them into my jacket pocket. Thank you, I said. Now I can finally stop being the family errand boy. I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, Dad's voice stopped me. Jacob, I turned. He looked smaller somehow. Older, broken in a way I'd never seen. You'll regret doing this, he said quietly. I met his eyes. No, I said. I'll regret not doing it sooner. Rob and I left without another word. Outside, the air was crisp and cold again, but this time, it felt good. Like breathing for the first time after being underwater too long. We stood by the car, watching the snow fall. You did good, kid, Rob said, clapping my shoulder. You did it the right way. Thanks, I said, exhaling. For everything. He smiled. Just promise me one thing. Don't let them drag you back in. Once you see what they really are, you can't unsee it. I know, I said. And I meant it. Weeks later, the paperwork went through. The trust was legally split again, half in my name, half in Claire's, with separate accounts for both families. But the money didn't matter as much as what it represented. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to them and won, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I haven't spoken much to my parents since. They've texted a few times, long guilt-ridden paragraphs that start with, "We just want to move on," and end with, "Family is forever." I don't reply. Sometimes silence is the only thing left to say. Claire tried calling once. I let it ring. The kids and I spent this New Year's just the three of us. No forced smiles, no passive-aggressive comments. We ordered pizza, stayed up late watching fireworks from the balcony. And when the clock struck midnight, Ben hugged me and said, "This year feels better, Dad." He was right. Because for the first time in my life, it wasn't about proving I belonged in their version of family. It was about finally building my own.